Okay, test. Hi guys, back with another video. I wanted to do this for a long time actually. Another Quake video is coming up. What we're going to do is implement a new head-up display, a new HUD. So usually if you approach a button in Quake, you hit it, you bounce against it, the button activates, and the door opens or whatever the button triggers. But in a lot of other FPS games or games in general, when you get close enough to a button or any item entity that is that the player can interact with, first what happens, the cursor, the crosshair, changes to a different heads-up display, to another picture, indicating, giving the player some hint that he or she can interact with it, right? So, and we want to do that again, and only if the player decides to interact with it by pressing a key on the keyboard, then the entity, the button in our case, will get activated and the door opens or whatever. Yeah, so I think, let me check my notes. Nothing to add here. I think that's it. Thank you, and see you in front of the screen. Take care. All right, here we are in front of the screen. So since we haven't seen each other for such a long time, here is a small recap what happened. So first of all, this is the Quake 2 modding repository that I've been using throughout the last videos. A few things changed. First of all, the solution file, the Visual Studio solution, this one is now upgraded to Visual Studio 2022. And hopefully a lot of you already own or have Visual Studio 2022 installed on your computers. And the goal is to just make it as frictionless as possible for you. So you get the repo and you can instantly just compile it and everything should just work. And that we are going to do in just a moment. I also included this config file that is part of the repository, so you don't have to, whoops, my scroll wheel is broken somehow. So you don't have to copy anything there. This is just a reminder. What I did there is if you have a multi-monitor setup as I have, sometimes the values for where the window is spawned, if you start in windowed mode, it will have very large values and sometimes not be even be visible on your second screen. So the game starts and you don't see anything. Just let me see, where did I, oh yeah, this is where I mentioned it. Yeah. So you might have to give those some reasonable values, right? But more on that maybe a little bit later. Also, I have added this base Quake 2 folder, and it comes with the shareware version of the Quake assets. So you don't have to, if you don't own the game, you don't have to copy or hunt for this pack file. It's already there and you can start the game in shareware mode. Also, I included some extra textures I made myself, and we're going to use them for the test map we're working with. The test map you can find in maps. Here's the compiled map, the BSP, and also the map file that you can just open in TrenchBrew, right? Okay, so first of all, we clone the repository. Clone it wherever you want. I just use the desktop for now, and I call it Quake. I go in there, started the command line. I hope this is big enough for you so you can see git clone, and just clone the repository in here. Okay, so we downloaded it. Yeah, you can see it's not that small because of the assets. We can have a look at them. Base Quake 2 textures. And here you can see some of the assets I made in Photoshop. Yeah, so now we have the repository cloned, and let's just open it, the solution file, and hopefully this will just compile. So I right-click solution, build solution, and probably the software project won't build, but that is okay. We don't use the software renderer. So now we right-click on Quake 2 because that's executable. As you remember, the game is just a DLL, right? That gets loaded when the core engine starts. Right-click on Quake 2, set a startup project, and hit F5. And hopefully it will run. Okay, so as you can see, this is just I'm not doing anything. That's just a demo recorded, and we can start the first level. The config I added, this is quite dark. The config I added also includes reasonable keyboard controls, keyboard and mouse setup. Yeah, we can, if we hit the key below below the escape key, the top left corner of the keyboard, we can start the console. And if we just say map elevator doors, it should load the map that I included. I made in Trench Room with the textures that you just saw in the textures folder. And yeah, as I said in the introduction, usually, so this door, there's a door, right? Or two doors actually that open to the side, to the left and right side. When I approach them, they don't open. And usually you can have something like a trigger, like a func button entity. And if you approach it, and that is standard Quake, right? That is within the engine. You just approach it, whoops, the button gets pressed and the door opens. The button is just triggering the door. We're going to see that in Trench Room soon. But what we want to do, as I said, is have a button that only gets pressed when I press an extra key, right? So this one, as you can see, I just run against it and the door opens. But here you see another button. And if I hover, like if the crosshair touches the button, so I run against it, nothing happens, right? The cursor gets, it changes to this, I don't know, to these brackets, right? Left and right brackets. And only if I press the F key, the button gets activated and triggers the door. Okay, that is the goal. So that is not standard Quake functionality, the change of the HUD plus the key press that you can activate it. So this is what we're going to do. The next couple of videos, I quit the game, and yeah, try that out. If that works, you're good to go. All right, so now that you saw how the game can be compiled and started from this repository, we're going to have a look again at the toolchain we're going to use. So here is our repository we just cloned, right? And if you look, you can find two folders that are of greatest importance to us. The first one is the Trench Room folder. And if you look in the Trench Room, if you install Trench Room, there will also be a games folder. All right. So in my case, I have installed, where is it? I have installed Trench Room on the C drive and I put it inside Quake Dev, Quake 2 Dev new. Yeah, so I just downloaded TranchBroom and unpacked it here in this folder. And you can unpack it into whatever location you want. So if you look at my previous videos, we made a video specifically for all the stuff we're going to use that is relevant to actually making maps. And yeah, so if we look in TranchBroom, there is a folder games and Quake 2, right? And what we're going to do is using those same files, the game config CFG and the Quake 2 FGD, this one, and going to copy them over and replace the original TranchBroom files. So I don't do that because I already did it. So what is different in those files? Also, if you have looked, watched my other videos, the FGD file, if we look in there, it defines all the entities and properties and whatnot that are visible in TranchBroom when we're mapping, when we're making a map. All right. So, and actually we did not change a lot in here. If you look in my latest videos, but still, so just for the sake of being on the same page and everyone has the same setup, it would be good to copy those files over, especially in the game config CFG. That is more of a global setting for what resources, for example, TranchBroom uses. And if we look at textures, I think, yeah, so usually Quake uses, there is something called just a PCX file and WAD and whatever, kind of the packed resource file in Quake. But I changed a few things in the engine, in the code, so that we can use Targa files, for example. And I want to just use Targa files for mapping and working on the mod. All right, here you can see, usually it's only this one, the wall file, not WAD, wall file, yeah. Okay, so copy that over because this is not included in the retail version, no, the download version from TranchBroom, and then you're good to go. So the other file I was just, or the other thing I was talking about in the repository, there's a folder called scripts and there's a build bat. And the build bat you take and copy over to your root Quake dev folder where you have TranchBroom and other things. Yeah, so we take that, copy it over, I already did that. And what the build bat does is it compiles the map file for us that we modeled in TranchBroom and copies it over to the Quake 2 modding base Quake 2 maps folder. And then it will start the engine and we can run it. And I'm going to show that to you right now. So if we go in TranchBroom Exe, elevator doors. And this elevator doors map is just alongside the TranchBroom folder in base Quake 2 and maps. There are all my map files. All right. And as you can see, I also have the textures here and even the PSD files, the original files for the textures we saw earlier. Okay, so if we look at the map, you can see there is this func button, and this is just a regular button entity in Quake 2. And what that will do, if the player bumps against it, as we saw earlier, the button gets activated and it can trigger something. So, and as you can see, it triggers actually, there are two arrows reaching out from the button to each of those elevator doors that open to the side. And that is done by giving the the button entity the information about what to trigger. In that case, it's target elevator door. And elevator door is the class name, the target name of those two doors, right? So the big difference now is this button. And as you can see, it's also a func button. It's the same class as this one, but what we can do is we can set a spawn flag, in that case spawn flag 8, and that will tell the engine not to activate it by just running against it, but rather to wait for the user to press a key when the crosshair is touching the button and the player is close enough. Right. So as you can see, this func button does not have this target, the spawn flag set, spawn flag 8. All right. So let's say we have worked on our map, everything is fine, and we want to test it out. What I do is start the build bat. But we need to give it some parameters. So if we start the console in here, and then we say build bat, and then we just give it the name of the map. In that case, it's elevator doors, and then we say 1, and that will just says please also not only compile it, but also copy the map file, the BSP file over to our repository, and then start the game. As you can see here, maybe, yeah. So if I delete that file, the BSP file, if we now run the script, we'll do its thing and then start the game. All right. And as you can see, now we have the BSP file over here. In order for that to work, you have to change one thing in the build bat. And we're going to have a look at that right now. Here you can see this path where I cloned the repository to. So if say you have cloned your the repository earlier to another drive, say G Quake stuff or something like that, repos, and if that is the location of your repository we cloned, then you have to change it. Okay, like delete that and just use this one. Okay, I'm going to revert that, and that's it. And I replaced actually the tools that compile the map file, so that do the lighting, calculate potential visible sets, and so forth. I replaced the tools for that. If we look into the build script again, these are called Eric W tools, bin, Quake BSP, Viz, and Light exe. This tool is actually written for the original Quake, for Quake 1, but if you pass this dash Quake 2 BSP, it will actually work as a Quake 2 map compiler. And here is the download link for that toolchain. It's this one. You can download it from here, right? Yeah, once you downloaded them, you put them into a folder called tools alongside your trench broom and your build bat file, tools, Eric W tools, and bin, right? These are the executables that the build bat file will actually call. You can also put them into another location, of course, but then you have to change the path to the tools as well. Okay, it's getting hot. 1 second. So, and now the upcoming videos will actually deal with how we actually implement this behavior of a button that is only triggered when you're close to it and the HUD changes. But for now, I think it's fine if everyone is on the same page and this whole setup works. Let me know below in the comments if you experience any issues whatsoever, and I hope I can address those either directly in written form below the comment or in the next video. And if you're already curious, you can of course always check out the source code and try to find what parts I changed. I will give you a hint. If you search the project for button, I think it was use, because that's the one we check for. It's actually here. In gfunc.c, that is actually responsible for a lot of things regarding all the func entities, like function entities. And there is the standard stuff like button, touch, and so on. But there is also button use, on use button. That is a weird name, I have to admit. But yeah, if you you could just have a breakpoint there, for example, and hit a 5. We start the map. And see when the breakpoint gets triggered. You just saw I ran to the button, touched, hovered with my crosshair over the button, and maybe that was too fast. Let me do that again. Oh, by the way, just as a refresher, you can always start the game by default by setting some flags to the Quake 2 executable. If you go to debugging and then command arguments, you can always say plus map elevator doors and yeah, apply and OK. And now it should by default, yeah, load our own map. So now you can see, like, the crosshair is pretty small. I hope you can see that on the recording. But if we get close to the button and that, yeah, then it will trigger this breakpoint, and you can always go through the call stack and change and see, excuse me, what happened to get to this point. And then of course you can follow, press F10 to go to the next line. Maybe make it a little bit larger for you guys. Okay. And then it says other client buttons, whatever that is, I'm going to explain in the following upcoming video, and button use. So if a flag like a bit is set, this button use thing, then actually this button fire function will be called, right? And button fire, it's just, I don't know, it's self-explanatory, I think. Self-explanatory. I always had issues with that word. Anyway, but now we press F10 and I will tell you it will not, this will be false because we did not press the F button. So F10, yeah, nothing happens, right? So, but this is how you can kind of go through the code and check what is happening. And this is actually the method I always did to learn about the Quake source code, right? Just guess what something could be called, and sometimes you don't have to even guess because in TrenchBroom you see what entities are called, and then just look for them in the code and then check what happens when you place the entity and when the player interacts with it, right? So yeah. you can see some actually some of the debug printouts I did while I was testing it. Yeah. All right. So this is it for the first video. This is probably longer than I wanted it to be for this introduction. But yeah, if you experience any issues, as I said, just let me know, and I hope we can fix them in time. And yeah, then see you in the next video. Have a good one. Thanks.